Hello all, this is a short video over your major assignment that's due this week. The paper should be about a 2 to 3 page paper outlining your argument on whether or not there should be a constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. So we will try to go through this as much as I can to explain some of the issues, but you're going to have to do a little bit of research. This is not totally an opinion piece. Um, Marriage in the United States has historically been a state issue. The British allowed each colony to issue marriage contracts on their own. So if you were getting married in the colonies, you didn't have to go back to England to get a marriage contract. You could just go to your colonial authority. In the new Constitution, each state was given the authority to decide how to recognize or regulate marriage through the 10th Amendment. If you remember your reading and our discussion this week, the 10th Amendment basically says that anything not in the Constitution or forbidden to the states is given to the states. This means that the states have a lot of police powers in how they can regulate certain things. Um, Currently, married couples in the United States get about 1,138 benefits or rights that other couples do not. So, if you were a same sex couple that were married or civilly unioned, that you didn't get these benefits at the federal level or at the state level. Things like if your loved one was in the hospital, you couldn't see them. If they passed away, then you weren't automatically given access to the property unless there was a will. Even if there was a will, you might have to pay additional, um, taxes that others would not. Another important case was Loving versus Virginia, which is in 1967. Basically said that marriage should be allowed between interracial couples. Was one of the fundamental precedents used in the recent case in same-sex marriage, because they said that marriage was a fundamental right. So if it's part of a fundamental right, then it's part of your privileges and immunities under the 14th Amendment. That the government could take away that right or treat your union different from somebody else. In 2003, Massachusetts was the first state to allow same sex marriage, and then other states started to allow it as well, either through statute, constitutional change, or through referendums, that kind of thing. Or even judicial decisions. So, what this means is that some states allowed same sex marriage and others did not. Now, this created a constitutional problem because under the constitutional framework called full faith and credit, basically, if you were married in one state, your marriage should have been allowed in another state. So shortly after 2003, they signed a law called the Defense of Marriage Act. Basically, this says that, or said that for the purposes of the federal government, marriage was between a man and a woman, and that states had the ability to, basically not recognize the marriages of other states. So this created a somewhat of a problem. Shortly after Massachusetts, 31 states started to issue bans on same-sex marriage. So half the country allowed it, half the country did not. Um, U.S. versus Windsor was the first recent case to sort of allow for same-sex marriage at the federal level. They said that this constitutional problem that was created when some states allowed it and some states did not really violated the 14th Amendment, at least at the federal level. So when Windsor was instituted, basically, if you were married, you got all the federal benefits, you just might not get the state benefits. This was clarified in Oberfeld versus Hodges in 2015. Basically, they said that the existing state bans on same-sex marriage were unconstitutional. So your job is to determine whether or not there should be a ban on same-sex marriage at the constitutional level, or should the Constitution be amended to fix this. If you look at one of the major political parties this year, this is on their platform to change. So some of the things that you need to consider. Same-sex marriage was made legal in the Oberfeld, I can't even say the name, versus Hodges. And it's basically said that if same-sex marriage bans violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Basically, you can't treat one institution of marriage different from another. The second issue is that the job of the Supreme Court is to rule the constitutionality of state, local, and federal government actions through judicial review. So they're the final one. They're the final one to determine what's constitutional or not in the United States. In the recent case, basically they said that the issue was is that so many of these marriages got federal benefits, and the, the individuals who were suing were basically suing for their fair share. If they had a marriage and it was called a marriage, then they should be getting the same rights as everybody else. Um, and if the federal government didn't have these benefits attached to marriage, then there would be no case basically for the government. The court is the court of last resort, means that they're the final say on something constitutional. And the only way to fix this is if Congress does not like a rule, and then they have to offer an amendment to the Constitution to change it. So your question is, should there be an amendment to ban same-sex marriage at the federal level or at the state level? So think about what it takes to get a constitutional amendment, and should we have that? Now, the last thing that you need to consider is some points in the paper. Historically, these are some of the things that really mess people up. I need you to have a thesis. A thesis is an argument that tells me what your opinion is. If I were you, I would sit down and outline the paper first, and then come up with what your argument is. It doesn't, I don't care which side that you go on as long as you support it. The other thing is you may want to have a purpose statement. A purpose statement is basically a sentence that tells you what the paper is going to be about. If you have either one of those, then you would be covered for this part of the paper. You need to cite. You need to cite any evidence that you get from the internet or the book or government documents, journal articles, wherever you find it. Just don't use Wikipedia or an encyclopedia as stated in the directions. You need to include parenthetical citations or footnotes. Basically, after you cite some information, you have a parentheses and tell me where you got it from. No citations in the paper means that you get a 0. This is not an opinion piece. You actually need to go do a little bit of work about it. Also, just giving me a works cited doesn't cover you, because you need to go in and tell me where you got the information from. The reason that you do this is so that you sound credible. When you have more citations in your paper, it shows that you are to be trusted. And that you're coming from a place of authority. If you don't have citations in the paper, people may think that you made it up. You would need a works cited as well. Just note that just giving me website URLs is not enough information. Go look up how to cite web pages. I don't care if you use APA, MLA, Chicago, Terradian. There's stuff out there to teach you how to do that, and I've given you some of those resources. The other parts are to discuss the amendment process briefly. This is where you can cite the book to deal with that part of the assignment. Just cite Harrison et al. 2015, and you should be covered there. The other thing is you need to discuss how to get involved. This might be your last part of the paper or your conclusion. Part of this paper, or at least this class, is to consider how you might get involved if you really care about this issue. Some of you may not care about this issue at all, and that's completely okay. This is probably the last time political science is doing this type of paper. But if somebody was interested in getting involved, how would they do it? Would they go form an interest group? Would they write their member of Congress? Would they do a protest? Think about those issues. Well, I look forward to reading your papers. I'm sorry that this video came out late. I know they're going to be great. If you need to turn it in a little bit later, that's okay. I understand. We've got a lot of work to do this summer. The other thing that I need you to consider too is that you need to turn it in a task stream as well as in the e-courses. Just turn it in one or the other. It's not going to be as helpful. Task stream is for the university because we have to do some data collection over what you write. and then turning it into e-courses allows me to grade it. So at the very least, if TaskStream's not working for you, get it into e-courses or email it to me or something so that I get you your grade. This is 10% of your grade, so take it very seriously. So thank you. I'm looking forward to reading your papers. I know they're going to be awesome. Just try your hardest. This is a weird paper. We're not doing it anymore, but we've got to kind of follow the same syllabus this summer. Talk to you soon. Bye.